Welcome to the Tokenomics DAO podcast, where we explore everything tokenomics related, ranging from deep dives on the tokenomics of the newest protocol to demystifying the nuance of building a successful token ecosystem. Our goal is to bring awareness to the importance of tokenomics and the crucial role it plays in defining the success of a protocol, helping make tokenomics relevant for everyone, builders and investors alike. I'm your host, Flo, joined by my co-hosts, Jason and or Lovis. Welcome to the podcast. On this episode of the Tokenomics DAO podcast, we've got Icedcool from Bankless DAO on. And I must say, I really enjoyed this conversation. It was quite a deep dive. We talked a lot about a lot of technical topics and nerded out a little bit about tokenomics. So I hope you enjoy this one. We talk about anything that would be of interest to someone who kind of runs something like a tokenomics department, which is what Icedcool is part of at Bankless DAO. So the tokenomics department, they kind of think through how the Bankless DAO token bank can improve, how it can innovate, how it can accrue more value, and generally solve problems that Bankless DAO might face. So this is something super interesting that this team is working on and working out. So I hope you enjoy this conversation. Super excited about this one. We kind of, as Tokenomics DAO, we did a lot of these Tokenomics 101 articles, and this time we thought we'll bring on some of the people who are behind the tokens. And in this one, we've got Icedcool from Bankless DAO with us, who during my time, or when I was more active in Bankless DAO writing for them, he was kind of in the Developers Guild. And now you have, I guess, in the last half year or so, started this Tokenomics Guild, right? And I guess that's really interesting. So maybe you can just kick us off there. Maybe what the bank token is, how it started, and then how it came to this Tokenomics Guild and what the purpose of that is.
Yeah, for sure. And I think just like a real so the Bankless DAO was founded by David and Ryan and the Bankless HQ crew. And they minted the bank token and did the airdrop associated to the POAP and the different POAPs, and depending on the amount you'd get, the POAPs you had, you'd get different amounts. And that the rest is history for Bankless DAO. Like that spurred the whole Bankless DAO. So that token drop was the big catalyst. I think that what initially at the DAO there was talks of like a tokenomic group, a tokenomics kind of like someone to manage like treasury management-y group. It kind of took off. Like we do have the Treasury Guild, which like serves as like an accounting function at the DAO, but we didn't have like any group paying attention to integrations or liquidity or like treasury management as a whole, other than just kind of like keeping a sharp focus on accounting. And the Treasury Guild has done an awesome job at that, and like making sure that like projects are accountable, or like generating reports and things. But I saw a need for some of the just a little bit more technical tokenomic orientations of like maintaining liquidity depth and trying to make sure that we had low slippage in trades, or like implementing pools on different L2s, or any number, like whatever was really needed. And so the tokenomics department was kicked up, and the distinction between a guild and a department is important. because it's something that I'm working on at the DAO, and is that um like a guild is for us are like talent pools, and departments are kind of action oriented groups, and so they don't have any power per se at the DAO, and it's a little bit of a governance conversation, but or governance point. But so the tokenomics department doesn't have a power other than to create proposals and generate initiatives. And so we have all these working groups that spin off or create and then, complete as they finish objectives. And but yeah, so currently the coordinator for the tokenomics department. And yeah, I think we're focused on value accrual to the bank token. We're focused on something that I always find really interesting is liquidity and liquidity depth and maintaining that. And so that's something we focus on. Also integrations like, lending, or like we have a Rari pool, and just keeping an eye. It's like our mandate is be concerned with all things bank, and just pay attention to how bank is being used, and just the technical kind of tokenomic components there, and really really just aiming to enable the DAO, like and enable projects and integrations with bank.
So yeah, so I guess like I just want to jump into that right when you said it, right? This liquidity being your your kind of favorite little topic. Maybe we can start there. And like, why is that so important to be worried about liquidity? And what are you doing about it, right?
Yeah, because I think like this is so you meant a token, and I'm sure I'm sure a lot of your readers are probably fairly sophisticated DeFi users. But it's like, so you've got the token, um, but in isolation it's useless, and in isolation it's like it doesn't mean anything, but it's in relationship to other things that it's valuable. And so a lot of DAOs, as they kick off, there's these challenges of um where do you get the other side of it, what do you do with that, and so um and thus like liquidity, like how do you buy into the DAO, how do you get out of the DAO, like how do you sell if you're so inclined, how do you buy if you're so inclined, and then how do you do so in a way that's not painful. We're currently working on deepening liquidity in Polygon, because our some of our like our sub DAOs, like Bankless Brazil, Bankless Africa, and some of the tertiary, where working on L1, they come into the department and they're screaming for mercy. They say, please deepen liquidity on L2s because our slippage is too high.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so I see it as like you know just as like the um it's kind of like what, like the lifeblood of the DAO. It's like the circulatory system. It's like and so the metaphor of liquidity continues to work, is that it's the ability to transact on the equity slash ownership slash token layer between individuals, between groups, and really continue to enable the economy of the DAO.
Yeah, yeah. And then I guess there's multiple ways to do it, right? You can take some of your own capital and place it on exchanges and make sure that that gives you enough liquidity. But there's other ways where you can incentivize participants to provide their liquidity, and you'll give them some bank or something else. What are you using? What are you using there?
I really don't like so I got into DeFi at the very at the kickoff of Sushi Swap, and
Mm-hmm.
and so I experienced like all the different food farms and all the different food AMMs of
Yeah.
sushi, cake, bao, whatever, non. Um, I'm not a big fan of incentivized liquidity, actually. I think it creates problems. I think that the curve model is very brilliant. But um, my personal opinion is just that um, is like I really like institutional liquidity, and so for organizational liquidity. And so in the case of Bankless DAO, like we've made efforts to own our liquidity, and it to me, I just see it as like a service to the um, members and holders of bank, because we're not deflating the token with trying to make sure our the the economy continues to work through liquidity being provided so people can buy in, buy out, or sell out. Um, and so, and also, as a adjunct to that, is that it's been a really successful program. It's been one of the, like, in generating fees around trading, it's been a successful component of the DAO. But um, we implemented Olympus Pro, or integrated with Olympus Pro, and while it did generate sell pressure on the token, in the long term, it's generated just a very, we have something to the tune of like nearly $1 million in liquidity, which isn't a lot. I know it's not, there's but for us and
I guess
our DAO, it's a
depends.
lot.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
it right, it depends. Like like percentage of market cap, I know that, like, I was hearing from one of my friends that, like, Rook DAO has like $2 million worth of depth, and uh or it's just like it depends on what your market cap is and how much you actually need. But we're not a DeFi platform, so we're not needing, hundreds of millions of dollars worth of depth. So um
Yeah, yeah, and I guess like the majorities of cases where people would buy token, um, at the moment would be this gated community model, right? So there's this membership that you can attain by purchasing 35,000 tokens, um, and you could also earn them, but that's the fast track, I guess. You can just buy them, and then you can kind of become that member, right? Are there any other
right.
ways that are any other utilities or demand drivers that you see for the token?
Yeah. So, and I think that's the big focus of what we have right now is, as kind of like a non-finance DAO, like as more of a, Bankless DAO
Social, right?
is
Yeah.
social. Well, so, and this is what I think so much of the challenge of Bankless DAO is that it's a social, it's a labor DAO, it's a
Service.
investment DAO, service DAO. Yeah, it's, we are a media DAO, clearly. We're generating so many so many
Yeah.
podcasts and um, you know, newsletters I can't keep up. And I spend I spend all my time there. Um, but Yeah, so it's a lot of things. Mm, And so, but it is not a financial, like, we don't have any financial instruments or products
Yeah.
yet. Um and so that's like, and so DAOs that do have that, or platforms that do have that, like, their value accrual is very clear, very easy, like one to one. Um, and so, it's like they distribute dividends or what have you. Um,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah, so since we don't yet, the value accrual is very um it, it it's a little bit, um it's like a soft value accrual. And I think I brought this up to you before,
Yeah.
is that it's like there's not like dividends being distributed to bank holders. But if you're a bank holder, we get a lot of airdrops. Like, communities come to us and want to do airdrops to the token, or and if you've got 35K plus, like, you get perks in the Discord, and And we had an NFT trading group that was super busy during, NFT summer last year.
Yeah,
That was
yeah.
just, that was so some of the perks that were available to that. So the value accrual is in the form of like Discord channels or airdrops or future value potential, or like getting access to different channels, or like social capital accrual, which is like, oh, you're an L1, or you have the opportunity to become an L2, which is our level 2. Like you get voted in based on
The ranks. Yeah.
social, yeah, like social value. Beyond that, not yet. Like um that's something again that we're really working on and ideating around and um exploring some options.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that's also one of the interesting parts, right? I always wonder why like Uniswap trades at the price that it does, right? Because none of their whatever they do like massive transaction volume, but none of it accrues to the treasury and therefore to the token. And so
Yeah.
I think it trades based on the potential that they could turn on that fee switch, right? And that's something I think where I don't think Bankless DAO will turn on a fee switch, but it's just this hotbed of innovation of like all these people in the DeFi space coming together and churning out new things, right? And like there's something like they're throwing mud at the wall and waiting for something to stick. And at some point, there might be something really great that comes out of it. And then you'll be like, ah, cool. This is something we could definitely turn into something, into a business model, into something that will able to accrue value towards the token. And so it's sort of like a call option almost on
Oh,
the
really?
on the future of this community. That's how I kind of like to think about it, right?
Yeah, yeah, no, and that's how I think about it too. It's kind of I mean, this is what has me so dang excited about Bankless DAO is that, yeah, it's like it's a bet on the community, and
Yeah.
uh that at some point something's going to get figured out, and it may not, but
Hmm.
I think it will. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's
um,
like every day there's new people coming in and with new ideas, trying out new stuff, and
mhm.
just the whole infrastructure is there, right? That there's a little bit of funding, there's the grants proposals, and there's the projects that give them bank and they pay them bank. And that's also something that's just a really, really weird but interesting phenomenon is that when I wrote articles, you would get 4,000 bank for an article, right? And
Uh-huh.
you'd spent like 20, 30 hours, I don't know, writing that piece, and then you get 4,000 bank for it. And it still felt
Hmm.
good, even though it was like pretty bad hourly salary converted to US dollars, but
Yep,
it
yep,
was
yep.
still like, cool, I got something for this.
And that's so much of the I think there's interesting conversations to be had about like um uh you know it's like what are economies and money and equity and things like that. But um yeah, it's at Bankless DAO, and so much of that has been a focus of mine, or just like paying close attention to making sure the ecosystem of the DAO continues to work, of like people being able to pay each other, and also like the grants committee like distributing funds to projects. And because it's been part of some of the earlier decisions of the DAO is that because we had lots of talks about like compensation rates, which ultimately defined the 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 circulating supply of bank, um, because like the grants committee kind of serves as the function of like translating from the multi-sig to out to projects and contributors, and so it's something that we took kind of a strong funding approach initially, and then started to tighten as like the prices ran up, and are sitting now at a place where we're like, bear markets prices are down, but paying closer attention to the price. We've always paid close attention to the price, but also I'm trying to raise awareness around like making sure that that we keep an eye on, like our distributions and just in that it impacts the like circulating supply and
That you don't hit
and
it
that
like too hard in terms of per
seasonally, yeah,
season. Yeah.
yeah, well, seasonally, I think it's just um and I think this is where it's like the intersection of like tokenomics, governance, and some like the different components, accounting to treasury management, come into play. But um, the since the grants committee is doing the distributions of bank, um, there's um, they have a function to keep an eye on, like how much bank they distribute, because that will ultimately impact the price, because that amount added into circulation could be like, that is our inflation place.
Exactly.
And we
Yeah.
don't, and because we don't have a a current like redemption system, which again we're working on, but
Yeah.
like because it's we are just inflating. And the opinion that I have, and I'm debated. I'm not the, I'm heavily debated. Like lots of people, lots of the leadership of Bankless DAO have different opinions. Um, but the is that we should continue to fund at like our current rate, and with the bet being that we're going to figure out a revenue model, and we're going to create redemption systems. And we're currently kind of playing with um, the tokenomics department is playing with creating some infrastructure tokens that could enable different functionality at the DAO, like VE Bank, or um, integrations with different DeFi platforms, or um, you know, generally just kind of options there.
So walk us through that VE. We talked about it a little bit, and it's not VE. It's
No, yeah, it's
it's
not.
VE. It's something else. Yeah.
Yeah, it's value escrow bank, and that's the thing that we every time we bring it up, people are like, "All right, where do I put it so I can get more back? I can get some staking." Um, the and I'm like, no, yeah, it's just the novelty is that, at least the novelty that I see is that a VE is that it's adding time to the token, and then granting you something downstream for it. The VE model is just one, or the curve model of VE is just one example of that. But um, so what we're playing with bank is just that, adding time to bank allows you to identify long-term contributors, and really it's like generate vesting schedules. So it's like, um if you by adding time to bank, people that are willing to lock up are just that much more committed to the platform. And that's the big novelty I see of what the curve and all those, what we distribute will is uh again, we were trying to come up with lots of different options in the tokenomics department, but ultimately, because like found that just that because of the size of Bankless DAO, because everything that's going on with Bankless DAO, and because like our mission is very broad, that we're kind of trying a bottom up approach, um, of of implementing this, of like just making it available. And I think where platforms like Uniswap, Curve, or other large DeFi players, um, their team is tight. Their implementation is very organized, and they have like one very clear, clean mission. Its implementation's easy, and you can like tie that to like Curve emissions. For Bankless DAO, again, we're so large, and social media, labor, all these different kinds of DAOs, um, or have these different capacities. Um, we were like, all right, let's just make it available. And it was actually kind of cool, because as like, we were talking with our GSCs, or some of the different groups at the DAO, as they heard about it, they started organically planning on implementing it. And so I'm starting to see really excited to start to see proposals that are coming in, asking for funding with future plans to implement a time lock token, that is VE Bank. And the name might change, but generally people know VE good, and that there's some kind of like lockup component. And so for the mimetic value, we might just continue with it, and
That'll be
I'll
fun. Yeah.
just like bold underline, like double underline, value
It's
escrow,
value.
not vote escrow, right? Hopefully.
So,
Um,
so yeah, this is super interesting. I just wanted to fill this in with bottom up. I guess what you meant with that, right, was the fact that you just can't kind of came up with that proposal saying like, hey, we should do something in that direction, and then because Bankless DAO is so large, you got lots of different departments saying we want that, and we're weaving this into some functionality that we're trying to implement in the next season. Do you have anything specific that like is there anything you could talk about already? Any proposal where they've said, this is kind of how we wanted to use it?
Uh, Everything is very early right now. It's so early, and so in fact that it's like we've been chewing on VE Bank and trying, because initially we wanted to implement it to like support L1 membership,
Mm-hmm.
but we went back and forth on it for like 6 weeks, just because I think the thing is that implementing different tokenomics is a very careful endeavor. Like if we implement some mechanism or function, um, we could mess things up really bad. And in the system, while not perfect, is working. And so like the mandate beyond concerning ourselves with everything bank is keep it working. Like do as little harm as possible, and
Never
ideally
change a running
maximize
system.
positive. Yeah, well, we don't have, we're testing in prod, and
Exactly.
so
Yeah. Yeah.
uh so I think uh like we can simulate, we can think about, we can plan it out, but we're never going to know until we release these things into the wild, and then it's like what is it, hopefully it doesn't destroy everything. And so and that's like, so because we were like, oh, let's implement this like orientation of VE Bank, and one of our constituents was like, this is good, but it's going to introduce like $35 million or 35 million bank worth of sell pressure, or potentially could. And we just went back and forth. We're like, I don't know, there's not enough value to this implementation to justify a 35 million bank sell pressure, potential sell pressure, or it's something wild. It was something very high. And so ultimately we're like, okay, we can't do that, but it's at least clear that um the this this tokenomic infrastructure should be good. Like, and so uh and then it was just really exciting to think about, like, okay, let's just make it available and see what happens, and we'll start generating value accrual, and potentially based on what the DAO thinks and wants and votes on, we might move into like governance value accruing to that token too, i.e. governance votes being for the people that like
The
hold
lockup.
VE Bank.
Yeah.
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 Um, it's still very, very early. The proposal isn't even out. The writing is in draft, and there's tons of comments, and there's back and forth, and it's just proposal will probably be out though within the next few weeks. So
Yeah. Right. Okay. That's super cool. Um, I'm really interested in the process you do this with, right? Because you said you don't want to release something like this into the wild because you don't have a test system. So it's to me, I think it's like that's like this core challenge that a lot of not just the Bankless DAO Tokenomics Department, but any other tokenomics department that's out there will face, right? Like, how do you change your tokenomics while it's running, and how do you even go about this, right? Because there is no test system. Do you have any ideas or any advice, any thoughts on how this could be done or how you could approach it?
This is yeah, this is the way we do it is we sit in a meeting and we stare off into space and go, what bad things could happen? And we chew on them and go back and forth and debate. Um, uh, but I think if somebody knows of a better system than that, I'd love to hear it, because the problem is that you can't simulate human ingenuity, and that's what we're working with, is like
How can this be
human.
gamed? Yeah.
Yeah, how can this be gamed? How can this be um or and most people don't have that perspective, but inevitably somebody does, and so we have to like take into account, like, if people wanted it be for it to be really positive, what would they do? And so we have to like mentally simulate what would people do. um there's of course really cool like modeling systems like machinations that are really good at like financial modeling, but the problem is you don't know what you don't know. And so you um and that's why you we're at least taking the approach of being very careful um and just thinking deeply through uh every implementation or every change that we've got, because and yeah, and I think the problem is that you like there's no way to generate like a test environment, because that would require like groups of, I mean, you could actually you could generate some test systems, and honestly maybe there's a product there where it's like you incentivize lots of people to play with the system, but we don't have it yet. So,
Game it. Yeah, you have like these hackers. I don't know. Corporations have that. They bring out a new firewall and they get somebody in to I don't know what it's called, but they let someone try it and see if they can get in.
yeah, penetration test.
Penetration
Yeah.
test, yeah, something like that. You could maybe run that and figure
Yeah.
that out. So then generally you'd kind of sort this all out internally in the tokenomics department, and then once that has happened, you'd create a proposal, because you said you actually don't have that decision power, right? So you'd create, because you're decentralized and all that, you create that proposal and put that in front of the wider DAO, and then the DAO can decide if they want this new feature to be implemented or not, right?
Yeah, well, and as a bottom up approach, the point is information distribution, like making people aware of it. And so it's like um and so there's like a strong orientation toward it's a little bit of marketing of like,
Yeah, yeah.
like cleanly, clearly, simply transmitting, this, here's what this token is, here's what this token is meant to represent. If and it's like um if uh you want to adopt it or whatnot, here's the information, here's what it can enable with you all. And really it's going to be like some, like, take the pulse of the DAO, like take in opinions, take in um ideas, because that was like, again, that was the challenge that we were having, was like trying to solve for value accrual when it's not clear, like we're not in touch with all the different projects, like we're one department, of which we have like 13 guilds, each of which have their however many working groups, and beyond that there's anywhere from like 12 to like 30 projects going on in different times. And so the DAO has a lot going on, and we you know information distribution enables integrations and things, and what I'm hoping for is organic adoption, um, and then organic value accrual, because this is the same problem we have with the bank, like value accrual to the bank token, is since it's a soft accrual, um, we were having challenge, like we wanted to kick off like a raffle, and um, just to be like, hey, hold this amount of bank or deposit this bank here, and you can be part of a raffle or something. But then it became, oh, who's going to do it? And, we went to another department and they're like, you guys do it. And we're like, oh, um,
Got nothing to
and
do with
so
that.
it's, well, and that's tokenomics department's focused on tokenomics, not implementation of running a raffle. Um, and so it quickly became this like chicken or the egg challenge around it. So
Yeah.
um
And then like, so this was kind of something you came up with. Does it often happen the other way around too, where like different guilds reach out to you saying, hey, this is something we need, a tokenomics specific implementation. Here's some ideas on what you could change, do.
sometimes I think that like the largest outreach has been around like liquidity,
Mhm.
and requests for like more depth for so less slippage. But
Yeah.
I think that there's we haven't had a lot of like outreach in terms of like a technical tokenomic implementation. But if we did, we would field it for sure.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and um we had lending enabled for the DAO or for the bank token. That was a super cool learning, harrowing learning. Uh-oh. Can you guys hear me all right?
Yeah. Yeah. I
Okay,
think you
cool.
just
I think
a slight lag there.
okay, cool. Um,
That's okay.
yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, I know that um, it's led me to really super strongly. Like I've always respected leverage, but kicking up a lending market for the DAO had me like very, very strongly respect leverage and the like the value multiplicative capacity it has, but also the um uh like value loss. And and that's like I think we're all aware of the over leveraged positions getting liquidated. So
That downside potential. Yeah.
yeah, downside potential is strong too. So
So that then was a Rari pool you set
um
up.
hmm
Mhm.
yeah, it's we set it up as like an additional value accrual and to support capital efficiency. So it's like people wouldn't need to sell their bank, to while unlocking um uh, assets. Um and we had some very very excited members kick off some strong leverage positions. And it just the analysis and examination of it had me really respecting um the just the power of lending associated to a token, and it should be strongly respected.
Yeah, yeah. You should absolutely know what you're doing and the risk, I guess you're taking, right? In
Right,
these type of
like
things. Yeah.
right. And I think that even beyond, and that just goes for across the board in terms of tokenomics. Like that's just another underline for like move slow, make sure it's good. Because we we would never plan like the for some of the strategies that ended up getting used around the lending pool. We had some very excited contributors like do some very interesting leverage positions, and I was like where did you guys get these ideas? But that's I think I think that's so much of the just moving slow, being very careful about any implementations, do minimize harm and maximize positive externalities.
Yeah. It's like back to this ingenuity, right? There's people, they just game whatever they can. And
Right.
you just give them the chance, right? They'll figure
Hmm.
anything out in this whole game. Um, so I guess like what are some of the other problems you see with bank that you'd like to tackle, kind of like work on, um, or see the tokenomics department put some time on?
Yeah, so what's our currently are some of our focuses are like the value accrual is up there at like number one in and focus. Additionally, so we've got a treasury management working group that's probably going to turn into a department, and they're strongly focused on generating like strong traditional accounting reports, which I'm really excited about because it just the um, so much of the stuff that we're doing is not new, but there is like new novelty to what we're doing, like being able to generate a VE, a vested token that, you know, no parties have to interact with because it's on chain and implemented through code. Lots of novelty. But you know, just having like really solid traditional finance reports helps you make decisions around where you're at and what you've got, and so that you can decide on what to do with what you've got and where you want to go. And so we've had in the past some done, but we're getting really sharp on our reporting. And then because that same group wants to start putting some of the assets that we have to work, which is an awesome initiative in my opinion, just because like while we don't have a lot of assets, um, you know, using the opportunity of a bear market to deploy them where you do have them. And so,
That's good. Yeah.
you know, maybe it's only a 50K in USDC or something like that, but taking the opportunities where we got them.
There you go. Yeah.
You know, and like we had some of our we tested out a proposal to like put some ETH to work in a rocket pool, and that's been doing great. So just I think getting a really clear understanding of where we're at, and what does our and having working groups and different people associated to the work streams of, keeping an eye on like bank distribution, what are our revenue streams back, just in some ways some of the standard components of accounting. But two, like, so right now, as grants committee has funded projects, we haven't really had any group focused on making sure that value does come back, other than, a social contract of like, hey, you're here, like we're giving you a grant, for the expected that maybe, you pay 10% of revenue back, 20% of revenue back. I think part of that working group is to start to kind of like hardening those lines a little bit. So rather than it's like a strong recommendation, we'll have maybe a stronger recommendation of value accrual to the bank token or the multi-sig. Other ideas have been that like these projects buy back bank with revenue. Exploring different options.
Mm-hmm. What one of the things I always or that I see with like large organizations, and Jason and I always talked about this a lot, is that if if I work for a big tech company, right, and I'm responsible for this specific product, and I do a really awesome job, that most likely won't change the share price much, right? And if I do nothing at all, it won't change the share price much either, because there's 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 other people around that do their job, and that kind of contributes to that. So often I feel that when you're so large or when it's so big, that the individual contribution has little impact on what the token actually does, and therefore it kind of the role of it as an incentive diminishes. And so it's kind of like, if you had any thoughts on this, right, then that, like, so one specific example would be like, there's this Bankless DAO publishing arm, and I've been part of that, right? So there's certain clients like MakerDAO, they want us to write a couple of pieces, we write some pieces for them, they pay, and then the writer gets some, the treasury gets some, and all that gets some. But the role of the token in that specific case isn't really that involved, right? And so did you have any thoughts on that, on how to maybe get the token more involved as this incentive mechanism? Because after all, to me, like the guys working there on the ground, creating these departments, they're, yeah, they're kind of just like, they are principals in a way that they own bank tokens, but they don't really move the needle much, right? I'm not sure if this makes sense what I'm trying to say here, but
No,
just
it sure does. It's the what I'm hearing you talk about is uh like the relevancy or like the awareness that your work is impacting the token is lost. Like the further away from like leadership of the DAO you get, like as you're
or the
just
bigger
working
you
in your
get in
like local
general, right?
component. The bigger you get in general.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's a good question. I think hmm, it's something that uh I think in some ways it's something like that is what we're trying to tackle a little bit with this like this group that's going to be kind of like just reaching out to projects and some of the project accountability, because I think that like helping, because I think that the challenge is like um it's an important one, and I think if anything it's like it's increasing the awareness of that everyone's work matters. I would say a little bit that for me, because I'm a bank holder, like there is a sense that my work matters 100% more than if I worked at a large organization.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because I'm a leader of the work that I do. And that's one of the components of what I love about DAOs is that like I think that like what you're talking about is a little bit more um available, but still I think your point is 100% true of that. It's like you're just working on your article, and it doesn't seem like um that'll accrue any value to the bank token. You're just going to work it, you're going to get paid, and that'll be that.
Yeah. It's not going to 10x if you
um
write a great article, right?
well, it's not yet. Hope
Maybe.
I think that's the goal, right?
Yeah.
um but uh yeah, well, and I think I don't know, it's a cool point. um I think initial glances, initial ideas I have are like of uh um making sure that awareness is properly distributed, but also like on an organization like the EPA or the different organizational units, like that they make sure that their relationship to the token is strong too. And I think that's really so much of what the treasury management, like this one component of the treasury management is meant to do is just increase awareness of uh each organizational unit's relationship to the bank token. And if they are like, if they've taken a grant, that their relationship is to pass some kind of revenue back, or like to that we're all working for the same thing in some ways. um that we're all working toward the betterment of the DAO, which the market, or which is in some ways represented as the value of the token. um
Yeah. Yeah.
not a one-to-one, but it's a um but I think that's the, depending on how you view capital and your opinions on all these things, is that like uh just if the DAO is more valuable than the token, there's an arbitrage opportunity. You can buy in and get a value accrual as the DAO does take off, and the market does start to see that represented in marketing and blah blah blah. So
Yeah. 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 I think it's something interesting to figure out in the time to come.
mhm.
I just see like corporations sometimes do that, right? They might spin off something, and then the spin off might have its own shares, but the company that spun it off, the mother company in a way, they
Mhm.
keep a certain percentage of that. So they have their
Right.
own token, but are still like partially owned, have control over it. So yeah, maybe there's some smart token ideas that could be implemented in that way to really create this incentive, and I guess hopefully also motivate people on those levels
It,
to be more
and
aligned.
that's one of the big things where so probably the tokenomics department's biggest project is um really beyond VE Bank, is we're trying to align other, like, our sub DAOs. Um, so Bankless DAO has, Bankless Brazil, Bankless Africa, Bankless Sweden, Bankless Ukraine, like we've got Bankless Germany, and I think Bankless Peru is kicking up. Like there's a
Jeez, yeah.
million, yeah, and it's super cool, super amazing. And I think one of the challenges is that it's like, so these sub DAOs are DAOs, and not projects and not guilds, not
Hmm.
um and so, what they need is like, they need to kick up their own economies,
Yeah.
and they need their own economies need to be, and we want their economies to be value aligned with Bankless DAO. And so how we do that, we're experimenting with some like some tokenomic models, and uh, uh, um, and one of the things we're doing here, we're still talking with them and their community, but an idea we're experimenting with is um you know minting a sub token for them and liquidity pairing it to our token as like a value accrual mechanism. um
Mm.
and so it's a big experiment. It's a it could mean like like the positive that I'm really excited around with them around this is that it it enables, like, if we mint a token for them, that we value aligned to the bank token, um it enables their community to for them to incentivize their community and for them to really take off. um because right now they're limited by like how much bank we can distribute to them, and they need a lot because they're
Yeah,
big.
yeah. They need to bootstrap
um
this, yeah. The same way that
and they're
Bankless DAO did it, right? Yeah.
Exactly, 100% exactly. And so that's what I'm wanting to do with them is to uh uh um we mint a token and let them like go, and we value accrue that to the bank token through a liquidity pool. And
Hmm.
so, you do a BR bank pair, and you design it however you will, and then bank becomes the token that if people want to invest into Bankless BR, they buy into bank, and then they buy bank, Brazil
Yeah,
bank.
yeah, yeah.
And similarly though, if people want to sell Brazil bank, or they can sell, and it dumps bank. So that's the negative. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
so we're chewing on that, and that's, in some ways the same thing, like, being kind of slow around it because the minimize harm, and maximize positive potential, which is really enabling Bankless Brazil to create a start, like, kickstart their ecosystem.
Hmm.
um we're still in the draft phase on that one too. Like, that one's uh um you know uh like, we're planning out like the initial mint, talking with the Bankless Brazil community, talking with some core contributors around it right now, and continuing to explore around it. But again, the most important thing is like, value alignment and minimizing harm, so that uh um and maximize positive potential. So um
We'll have to follow up on that one, yeah.
yeah,
See how that
it's
goes. That sounds really
yeah,
interesting. Sounds like a piece of the puzzle towards that, what we said, right?
it's Yeah, and I mean, and that's what I'm, yeah, exactly. And well, that's what I'm hoping for. And I'm hoping that, like they have, I think, the strongest need. Um and because some of the projects they've thought about tokenizing and the like, and just haven't yet, or it's not unnecessary as they work on revenue. But because Bankless Brazil is a DAO, um we need to enable like the viral growth that happens with DAOs. um and uh um and I see that as one of the, like, a responsibility of Bankless DAO to like support all of our sub DAOs. So
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, you'll if as we move toward it, I imagine you'll probably hear about it because it'll be in the forums, it'll be on,
It'll
marketed
be
via all the
announced. Yeah.
newsletters. Yeah, it'll be everywhere. So
Awesome. Yeah. Um, I guess I've got one more thing. I know we're running out of time. Uh,
mhm.
that I'd find interesting, get your take on, and that's reputation. I know that Bankless DAO doesn't have any form of on-chain reputation for the work that's done, and it's hard. You can't really do it with Bank, right? Because you can buy Bank. So, have you had any thoughts on a reputation token to reward for contributions as well? So, kind of like an on-chain experience or
Resume.
skill or credentials or resume, whatever. Yeah.
Not yet. I think if anything, like we've just been so focused on like value accrual in terms of uh like the value of holding bank. Like that's been the main focus. I do know that there's been a ton of uh, digital identity projects, platforms,
Yeah.
apps being built, and in some ways, I think we're kind of, at least personally, I'm kind of waiting for some of that to shake out and like,
For the
okay,
right
like
ones. Yeah.
yeah, like because because at the outset it's like there's construction signs everywhere and dust everywhere, and it's like there's bugs on every part of the platform. At some point though, it's like the some of the better ones sift out, and there's higher quality stuff, and then like, okay, we'll probably adopt that or work with that in some way.
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
but but social capital, because largely at Bankless DAO, social capital is ephemeral, like it's not tokenized. It shows up in the form of being an L2. um so like if someone is an L2, like they have
Yeah.
social capital at the DAO, but we don't have, yeah, no plans for that yet. But this is the thing. It's if somebody came in, they're like, "Hey, I'm stoked as hell to kick off this social token, for Bankless DAO, like, or some kind of like representation of social value." I feel wary of it at outset, actually, though, because it's like it becomes something that people try to game. And I guess people try to game social value capital anyway, right? Like people try
Anything.
to do
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, right. People try and do cool shit on the forum, or like, look at me. Um, and the
Yeah.
token would
True.
just make
Yeah.
the token would just make it more uh, uh an observable instance. But yeah, no, nothing yet. But we have thought about uh um like vote escrow, and if we ever do get a DeFi platform, I love redacted cartels. Uh like if you want the governance tokens, you can have this one. If you want the revenue tokens, you can have that one. So it's like they kind of like they have a distinction between their
We got both.
uh
Yeah.
well, you start to have like, here's your contributors that care about revenue, and here's your contributors that care about the running and the governance and the functioning of the system and the governance of it. And so you start to get, um, clear clear dichotomies of what people care about, and you still get to see like contributors. It's not just because the problem with what's great about time and the token is that you get like long-term value aligned contributors, but there's no nuance that they're all just like long-term value. But what about, and in redacted's like, well, what about, here's the people that care about revenue and here's the people that care about governance. So they've got two clear groups, or at least, if you hold both, you get to see how much the person cares about in their wallet. So um,
Yeah. Yeah. You
um,
can do that market research by checking out their wallets.
right, that's
And
right.
yeah. Yeah. All right.
Um, so some on that, but yeah, nothing yet. We move really slow and minimize harm, and maximize positive externalities.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that's important, especially given that you're like such a large community and it's been around for a while. So um, working well. Is there
Yeah.
anything we've missed that you still wanted to like mention or talk about before we wrap it up?
Mm, no, I think that I said this some last time in or when we talked recently, and I think it still remains true that, um, that I think there's a lot of opportunity with where we're at, which is that like we don't have a DeFi platform and we do have um like soft value accrual to the token. Um and 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 so it's I think that to me we're in like we have a lot of opportunity to innovate and to explore the space. Um and so I think that you know while we work toward or potentially move into like having a DeFi or a financial value accrual, in the meantime, like, us being forced to find soft value accrual is, I'm hoping is gonna, pan out with us having like some really, really cool accrual to the token. But it is an experiment. We are, continuing to innovate and um, uh, find ways to make bank as valuable as possible and useful and which ultimately enables the DAO and uh, creating on ramps for people into Web3.
Noble goals. Yeah. I think that's super important
Yeah, that's
and a great thing to do. Yeah. Just keep it that way. Right. Um, this was awesome. I think I learned a lot. A fun conversation.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's
Um,
super fun. This is my favorite topic. Love doing it. Love talking about it. And yeah, it's hopefully the podcast listeners, it's valuable in some way. So
yeah, oh, definitely this will. Definitely this will. It's always good to, have people who especially this, we talk a lot about designing tokens and what could be done and all that. But what you guys are doing is giving these insights on what happens once it's actually launched, like this post-launch, this you're like in the machine room, sort of making sure it all works, trying to find out what to do next. It's a slightly different view than usual. So I think it'll be very interesting for everyone.
yeah, we're trying not to put wrenches in the machine. The machine has to continue working. So very careful.
That's it. That's it. The most important thing.
Right.
Perfect. All right. Icedcool. Thank you very much for coming on.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah. This podcast was not financial or tax advice. This channel is strictly educational and is not investment advice or a solicitation to buy or sell any assets or to make any financial decisions. This video is not tax advice. Talk to your accountant, do your own research. None of this is legal advice. This podcast is strictly educational. Talk to your lawyer.